Welcome to Pages with Sidra here. I bring you the novels behind your favorite manga, Manhwa, and Manhua, whether by translating or simply reading them for you. Let's dive into the stories that inspire the comics we all love. I Got a Cheat Ability in a Different World, and Become Extraordinary Even in the Real World, Volume 15. Chapter 2, Shuzakuren. Part 1. 2 red moons in a purple sky. In the devastated land, strange architectural structures remained in a crumbling state, perhaps the remnants of a civilization that had perished. And then, Gaur, a strange creature whose body was partly mechanical but whose entire form was that of a quadruped animal fought while letting out a roar. 1. Moreover, the opponent was Night, who had been transported to this mysterious world. The creature, which was at least 10 times larger than Night, repeatedly tried to trample him with its front legs, but Night brilliantly dodged the attempts, and when he saw an opening, he attacked with his sharp claws and fangs, tearing at the monster's gray skin. Gah! Considering its huge size, the damage from Night's attack was insignificant, but still, its body was slashed here and there, blue bodily fluids gushed out, and its body was gradually showing its limits. Furthermore, P.I. Seal's blue flaming body spun around at high speed and plunged into the monster, piercing it. Huo. The monster, apparently reacting to being pierced, fell to its knees. Night, Seal, and the remaining Akatsuki. Buhai, Fugo. Woof. He shouted thoughtlessly from a short distance as if he was cheering them on. In other words, he did nothing. While Night was dismayed by Akatsuki's behavior, he braced himself and bit into the monster's neck, ripping out its throat. Guara. The monster, which let out a particularly loud scream, seemed to struggle for a while but then became weaker and weaker until it finally died. Then, the body of the fallen monster collapsed like sand and disappeared into the wind. When the body was gone, a mysterious green shard appeared from inside. The shard emitted a blinding light for a moment, then split into 3 pieces and flew to Night, Seal, and Akatsuki. Woof. Hei. Fugo. Buhai. They panicked at the unexpected turn of events, but they could not avoid it, and the fragments disappeared as if melting into their bodies. Night and the others quickly checked their own condition, and Akatsuki also activated his sanctuary skill, but nothing unusual appeared in their bodies. Woof. The 3 animals looked at each other and tilted their heads. Hours had passed since they arrived in this mysterious world. The 3 of them had been wandering around, trying to somehow return to their original world, but they had been unable to find any clues, and the earlier battle with the monster and the appearance of the green shards were the first things that had happened to them. Woof. Hebi. Fugo told her. There was nothing wrong with their bodies for the time being, so Night and the others started to move again, looking for a clue. Fortunately, they had been able to work without feeling hungry since they came to this world. However, as soon as they started to move, Jiarfaraha. Pai. Buhai. Night felt the presence of a creature. However, the only thing that could be sensed from its presence was hostility, and it didn't seem very friendly. As soon as they were alerted, the space near Night and the others distorted, and something appeared from it. It was a huge, single eye with tentacles wrapped around the eye. This was also the first time they had seen such a monster, and not only Night but also Seal began to be wary of it. Night and the others were surprised by the sudden appearance of the monster. The fact that it suddenly appeared where there had been no sign of the monster made Night wonder what caused it to appear. For example, did it hear the sound of the battle with the monster earlier, or was it attracted by something that brought it here? Then, the monster attacked Night and the others relentlessly. Churururu. Woof. Night and the others started to fight again. At that time, they had no idea that such a battle would continue over and over again. We defeated Whips. Then Iris-san knelt down as if she had lost her strength. Ka. Iris-san. I immediately ran to Iris-san and gave her my shoulder. I'm sorry. I've lost a bit of my strength. It's okay. Thanks to Iris-san, we were able to defeat Whips. Besides, that attack you just used. Well, I remember being completely absorbed, or rather very focused, but I didn't really notice much more than that. After hearing what Iris-san said, I was convinced. After all, the attack that defeated Whips earlier was nothing more than an idle strike. I reached that state through the direct instruction of Sage-san, but Iris-san reached it on her own. While I was surprised by this, Mako and Stella came over to me. Master. Naya Tilda. Mako and Stella, thank you both for your hard work. Thanks to you, we're all saved. No problem at all. I wish I could have been more helpful. Naya. No, Mako was a great help. So was Stellar, of course. Mostly thanks to Stellar, I found out that if I had the power of existence, I could damage Whips, who was manipulating the divine power. Without the two of them, I would have struggled more. While I was thinking about this, I suddenly heard a lovely sound. I turned my eyes toward the sound and saw Ira-san with a bright red face. That was. I'm sorry, I just got distracted. It seems that the extreme concentration of the fight made her hungry. In addition, Ira-san's physical condition is still not perfect. Well, let's go home again. Ira-san is probably not in perfect condition yet, so let's get a good rest and start again. Besides, I'm hungry too. You're right. After I managed to convince her, we went back to Sage-san's house. Then Lexia-san and the others came to us. Yuya-sama, what's wrong? Actually, we just fought the whip saint over there. What? So they had already found this place. Luna's expression looked serious. Yes. But they couldn't break the barrier at Sage-san's house, so everything is fine. That makes me realize even more that the barrier at that house is really something else. Really, the more you know, the more you understand the greatness of Sage-san. More importantly, I used up a little too much energy in that fight, so I thought I'd take a break. I'm also hungry. When I said that, Lexia-san's eyes lit up. Ara, then I'll cook for you. Eh? And no, I mean, I can't even ask Lexia-san to cook for me. That's right. You're a princess, right? Just behave properly. Why? Yuya-sama is hungry, isn't he? I'll prepare a home-cooked meal. I said it's okay. Knowing Lexia-san's cooking skills, Lunar and I kept eye contact and tried our best to suppress her anyway. Then Mako opened her mouth. I'm sorry, Lexia-sama. I thought I would do the cooking this time. Mako. It is true that Mako is a very good cook. If Mako cooks, I'll give it to you. Why are you acting so superior? Somehow, we managed to avoid a situation where Lexia-san did the cooking. When I was relieved about that, Mako called me. So, Master, may I use some of the ingredients from your kitchen when I cook? Of course. Oh, by the way, I'll also put out the items in my item box that could be used as ingredients. Are you sure? Yes, it's fine. It would be a waste if we didn't use them. There was a variety of food in my item box. Since time froze in my item box, I tend to leave things there. Besides, even in my daily meals, I usually only use products from the earth, except for vegetables from Sage-san's garden. At this point, I thought it would be a good idea to have Mako prepare them deliciously. After putting the items from the item box in the kitchen, Mako's cooking began immediately. While Mako was cooking for us, we decided to exchange information about whips and god soldiers. Then Yuri, Kuya-san, and Auma-san came over. Looks like you two had a nice fight. Auma-san, did you notice? It's hard not to notice when there are so many strong presences. Hey, Luna, did you notice? How could I? We were in the house of this earth, you know. Don't compare me with Aum-sama. Agreed. It's impossible to read the presence across worlds. Well, detecting signs between worlds is quite difficult. It seems that Aum-sama and Kuya-sama were the only ones who were aware of the attack by Whips and the others. So what happened? Actually, the Whip Saint came to Sage-san's house. We fought with her, but the divine power was more troublesome than I expected, and numerous knight-like beings called God's soldiers were summoned and attacked us. God's soldiers is another grand name, isn't it? Yes, it is. But actually, as the name implies, they were like messengers of God. As Ira-san said, I felt that they were God soldiers not only in appearance, but also in power. Most importantly, although it was very small, I could feel the divine power of the God soldier. Fortunately, compared to the Whip Saint, the divine power of the God soldiers was so small that it was able to damage them even without the power of existence. However, when it came to the level of the Whip Saint, we still needed to have either the power of existence or the divine authority to inflict damage. After we eat, we will leave, but another holy might come. Well, don't worry about that. I'm here too, and they can't get past Senatus barrier. That's true. Instead, you should worry about yourselves. You can't do anything if you're tired every time you fight the holy. That's a shame. Ira-san made a regretful expression. HMPH. Well, but it was all right, wasn't it? You found out that the divine authority and the power of existence could work together before you fought the main culprit, didn't you?
Yes. Almasan was right. In a way, it was a great help that whips attacked us at this place. If I had to fight Shu without knowing anything, I would have struggled even more than before. While we were discussing such things, Lexia-san's eyes lit up.
That reminds me, you Ryasama. I haven't been properly introduced to this child yet.
Nair? When Lexia-san looked at Stellar, she said this. Stellar herself looked up for a moment, but immediately started licking her fur as if she had lost interest. Sure, I've been wondering about her for a long time.
Affirmative.
New family? I had told them that Stellar and I had met in Between Worlds, but I hadn't told them much about the rest, had I? Yes. New family member, Stellar.
Naya.
As I introduced her, Stella raised her hand slightly.
As I told you before, we met when I went to the Between Worlds. Well, I don't know exactly how we became a family, but even you doesn't understand. I believe she was a dimensional cat, wasn't she? What in the world is that?
Even if you ask me, I can't answer. I no longer cared what Stellar was. When I thought about it, Stellar was kind to me from the moment we met.
But even though she had such a beautiful appearance, she had the same power of existence as Yin and the others, so much so that she was cast out of the world. If you looked at her like that, she's just a cat with amazingly beautiful fur. While I was thinking about that, Lexia-san continued in an excited tone. It doesn't really matter. More importantly, can I pet her?
Well, if it's okay with Stellar. It's okay, right? Lexia-san asked with a snort.
Stella looked at her for a moment. Naya. But as if rejecting Lexia-san, she immediately turned her face away from her. Seeing Stella like that, Lexia-san's eyes widened.
Why? Har. Give it up, Lexia.
Apparently, she doesn't want to be touched by you.
What did you say?
Then Lunar immediately started provoking Lexia-san as usual.
Originally, Lexia-san was a princess, and Lunar was her escort, so it would be disrespectful, but the two of them really got along. While I was thinking about them, Lunar suddenly held out her hand to Stellar. Even if you can't, I will.
Naya.
Smacked.
Stellar slapped Lunar's hand away.
After a moment of silence, Lexia-san blurted out. PFFT. Lunar, you got rejected too. Hey, Stella. Let me pet you.
Irritated, Lunar stretched out her hand again. Bonse.
Naya. War?
Again, Stella slapped Lunar's hand away. After that, Luna reached out her hand to Stellar as if to challenge her several times, but she was easily dodged or could not touch her properly. And now moving on to part 2 of this chapter. The story is just getting more exciting, so let's dive right in and see where it takes us. After Stella dodged Luna's hand. Ha, that's too bad. HMPH, unlike me, she wasn't even interested in you.
What?
Oh. They started to argue again. Then Yudi opened her mouth.
Challenge. I'll touch her too.
As soon as she said that, Yudi stared at Stellar.
Nair?
Stellar tilted her head to look at Yudi, but neither of them looked away. After staring at each other for a while, Yudi reached out her hand to Stellar.
And then...
Naya.
Stellar slapped Yudi's hand away as well.
Another moment of silence passed, and Yudi reached out to Stellar with tremendous speed, a complete change from the previous moment. Barton. Naya tilde. Yawning, Stellar easily dodged Yudi's fierce attempts. The sight made Yudi's pursuit even more fierce, but she still couldn't catch Stellar. Seeing such a tremendous battle, Luna and the others opened their eyes. That's amazing. Oh, I knew that Yudi was awesome, but I never thought that Yudi would be so helpless. Yudi's lack of facial expressions made it difficult to read what she was thinking.
However, it was obvious to everyone that she was now pissed off at Stellar.
On top of that, she is surprised and impatient about the situation where she couldn't touch her at all.
Naya.
Ugh. The attack and defense continued for a while but finally came to an end when Stellar pushed Yudi's hand away. Yudi rubbed the hand that had been hit and muttered in frustration. Defeated. Stella, strong. Naya tilde.
Stellar's attitude, as if to say, you can come anytime, made Yudi frown more and more.
In the midst of all this, Irisan, who had been watching the exchange between us until now, opened her mouth. Everyone, you are not ready yet. Leave this to me. Irisama. Surely Irisama would be able to touch her.
Observe.
Find the weak spot.
Nair.
The eyes of Lexia-san and the others lit up as Iris-san showed her motivation.
I've already watched Stella-chan fight, so don't expect me to do the same as the others.
Iris-san smiled fearlessly, but Stella was completely unconcerned and yawned. Stella was so careless that Iris-san twitched her cheeks and reached out her hand even faster than Yuri had done. Just be quiet and let me stroke you. It was truly a move that could be called divine speed.
Was that unrateable, even for Stella?
That's what I thought. Naya. Stella jumped back slightly and dodged Iris-san's hand. But Iris-san seemed to have anticipated that and had already moved on to the next action. If you jump, there's nowhere to run. She mercilessly extended her hand to Stella, who was still in the air, unable to land on her feet. Her spirit could be compared to the time when she fought against whips. No, why was she so serious about just patting Stella?
While I was unintentionally looking far away, Stella, who I thought had been cornered, brilliantly dodged Iris-san's hand, using her hand as a foothold. Wah. As expected, this was completely unexpected to Iris-san, and her eyes widened. Stella, who had lost the pursuit of Iris-san, landed lightly on the ground and started licking her fur again.
Naya. Her attitude, as if to say that she's still naive, brought out a frustrated expression on Iris-san's face.
I really tried, but I lost.
No, you don't have to be so serious to pet her. Then, after the exchange so far, Lexia-san raises her voice.
Hey, Yuya-sama, this child won't let anyone touch her at all. I know, right? Is this fellow really a family member?
It's up to Stella to decide if she wants to be touched, not me.
As if looking for help, I look at Stella, who is licking her fur.
Naya, Tilda.
What?
When Stella caught my gaze, she immediately came over to me and showed me her belly without hesitation.
Seeing Stella's defenseless appearance, I patted her reflexively. Good girl.
And then, her. Stella purred happily as I stroked her. Wait a minute. Isn't she looking too affectionate with Yuya-sama? In fact, isn't she too attached?
It hasn't been that long since you two met, has it?
Luna was right. Stella and I have only just met. I really don't know why she's so fond of me. Anyway, we're no different than a nice family. After that, Lexia-san and the others challenged Stella, but in the end, none of them could touch her.
While we were explaining about whips and playing with Stella, Mako brought in the food. It's ready.
Oh, it smells so good.
What was brought before us was pankatsu,
tea/and Japanese pork cutlet. It was served with a salad, miso soup, and other dishes that were very nutritious and well-balanced. Lexia-san and the others, who were not familiar with tonkatsu, looked at the dish with great interest. What kind of dish is this?
Tonkatsu. Yes.
It is a dish made by coating pork and frying it in oil. I thought I'd eaten a lot of different things since I came to Earth. It looks delicious.
But why did you choose this dish? When Lexia-san asked this, Mako replied shyly.
There is something in my knowledge that says that this is the only dish I should choose before competing. It is perfect for the fight against Chu. Certainly, tonkatsu was a dish that was often eaten as a good luck charm.
More than that, the knowledge of the sinners in the underworld was a mystery, like giving Mako the knowledge of the maids and giving her the knowledge of the lucky dishes. Before it got cold, we ate the food brought to us.
It's tender and delicious. The crispness of the crust and the juiciness of the meat are amazing.
Affirmation.
Eating it makes me feel better. After Yuri told us this, I noticed that I did indeed feel strangely full of vitality. Then Mako answered the reason. I used the King Ok meat that Master gave me. That's a super high-quality ingredient. Luna gushed at Mako's words, and Lexia-san's cheeks twitched. Come to think of it, I had given Mako the monster ingredients I had left in my item box. I've eaten monster ingredients several times, so I don't feel repulsed by them now.
In fact, the monster ingredients were so much tastier than Earth food. I wonder if it had something to do with their magic power. Whatever it was, I felt full of energy.
Then Iris-san, who was also eating, looked down at her own body.
As expected from the meat of King Og, my strength was restored immediately. Well, I'm glad I kept it.
With this, I think we can leave right away. Thanks to Mako's quick thinking, Iris-san was able to regain her strength.
I wasn't particularly aware of it, but I'm glad we used the ingredients from the item box.
Then Luna, who had a mouthful of miso soup, opened her eyes.
Mum,
what is this soup? Did I do something wrong?
Lunar's reaction made Mako ask anxiously.
Seeing Mako's reaction, Lunar hurriedly continued. No, there was nothing wrong with the cooking.
This miso soup.
The taste of the soup is certainly unfamiliar to me, but it is delicious.
That's right. I've never tasted it before either.
But it is very comforting. Lexia-san was right. There was something so comforting about miso soup. But
then what's wrong with it?
The problem is the meat in it. As Lunar said, there was meat in the miso soup this time. I hadn't touched the miso soup yet, so I didn't know what it tastes like. What is this meat? It's so delicious that it makes King Ox meat taste hazy.
Huh. I was surprised by the unexpected words.
That's because the King Ox meat was also very tasty, to the point of being impressive. And that kind of meat tastes hazy. I took a sip of the miso soup, feeling that Lunar's words were exaggerated. Exclamation. My eyes widened at that moment. What is this? I thought it looked like pork, but it wasn't.
While pork was much lighter, this meat had a unique flavor, and it immediately spread in my mouth. But it was not bad at all. Rather, it was too delicious. Mako.
What kind of meat is this? When I asked without thinking, Mako replied in surprise. Oh, let's see, it's the king mythril boar meat that master gave me.
Ah. Hearing Mako's words, I was convinced.
If I remember correctly, I got something like demon king boar meat as a drop item from the king mythril boar. I also heard that the meat has a strange taste and smell, but once you eat it, you would be captivated by its flavor. After trying it, I could understand that explanation. The meat was that good.
While they were impressed by the taste, Lexia-san and the others were even more surprised than when they ate the king ox meat.
King mythril boar, you say? It's a monster that hasn't been defeated in the past few hundred years. I never thought that I would eat the meat of such a monster.
Delicious.
While Lunar was on the verge of giving up, Yuri continued to eat without a care in the world.
Since the meat of King Mythril Boar was originally obtained during my training with Master Usagi, Iris-san, who is also holy, enjoyed her meal very calmly. Well, now that we have eaten our fill, let's get going. After enjoying a short rest in this way, we once again made our way to Shu's place.
And now moving on to part 3 of this chapter. The story is just getting more exciting, so let's dive right in and see where it takes us.
Hail, Shu-sama. Hail, Shu-sama.
The people spread out below. The faces of the people were uniformly cheerful, rejoicing at the birth of their new savior. Hearing the enthusiasm of the people, a man stretched his arms wide.
It was the Katarn of Saint Shuzakuran.
Immersed in the voices of the people, Shu opened his eyes softly. Finally, halfway, Shu was now working towards the complete annihilation of the evil, with the goal of controlling all of humanity. The evil was the crystallization of the negative aspects of all living creatures in Arjuna. Therefore, he wanted to create a world in which evil would never be born by controlling and managing the emotions of humans, who were the main source of evil. However, there was no way that any country would accept such a plan. Naturally, countries began to move to defeat Shu, but Shu and his followers had mighty divine power, and any country that resisted them was defeated. On top of that, he beheaded all the core people of the countries who opposed him. Normally, those countries should have fallen into chaos, but they did not. The soldiers to protect the people were replaced by Shu's god soldiers, and the barren land was transformed into fertile land by the power of the gods. This made the people accept Shu even in countries that had lost its core people. To further win over the people, he also beheaded the leaders of other countries that were still ruled by bad governments and saved their people. As a result, Shu was worshipped as a savior in half the countries of the world, and this worship also turned into Shu's divine power, and he was steadily on his way to becoming a god. How about that? This is happiness through the power of God. As Shu asked this question, he looked at Odis and Usagi. The two were bound and placed in a rainbow-colored cage, unable to move. Now, for heaven's sake, prostrate yourselves before me. I refuse. The happiness you speak of is nothing but a lie. A lie? Do you still believe that when you see the faces of these people? Saying this, Shu moved the rainbow cage so that they could see the faces of the people better. And there they were, full of hope and smiling brightly. Are you telling me this is all a lie? Yes, that's right. This happiness is an illusion created by you, binding people's hearts, uniting their emotions. There is no way they could approve of that. Right. Shu's purpose was to lead all of humanity to eradicate evil.
The people gathered here had already been stripped of their emotions by Shu's power and were no longer able to grieve or be angry.
They were just fanatics who rejoiced in the events before them and worshipped Shu.
This was the reality of the scene. What's wrong with that? What?
But Shu continued without a trace of remorse. Anger and sadness are unnecessary before happiness. Why can't you see that a world overflowing with joy is true happiness? Indeed, anger and sadness will make people unhappy, but they can also be a driving force for people to move forward. To take that away from people because of your own selfishness is absolutely unforgivable. I am allowed to do this. I am God after all.
When Shu said this, an overwhelming amount of divine power poured out of his body.
As the aftermath of this power reached the people gathered under Shu, they were overcome with ecstasy. Oh, this is the power of God. Shu-sama, Shu-sama. The people were intoxicated with the power of God. In front of them, Udis distorted his face.
This is no different from conquering the world.
How is this different from the evil? Don't you dare mix me with them. Exclamation.
Shu raised his voice at Odie's words. They must not exist.
They must all be exterminated. Shu's eyes were etched with deep hatred as he said this. Katarner Saint Chuzakiran.
He was born in an ordinary family in a village. But the village was always poor because the country fought senseless wars, and the greedy feudal lords imposed unjust taxes on them.
Yet he was happy.
His father, his mother, his childhood friends.
He was able to live happily despite his poverty because of his irreplaceable and precious family.
When he reached a certain age, he was given the responsibility of working in the fields and hunting in the mountains. He was especially skilled at hunting, and although he was only 10 years old, he was considered the best hunter in the village. One day, while Shu was hunting in the mountains as usual, he noticed that the mountain looked different than usual.
Having a bad premonition, Shu immediately returned to the village and found that it had turned into hell. A swarm of jet-black beasts, the evil beasts, were attacking the village. Normally, evil beasts did not appear so easily. However, in a country at war, there were a lot of negative emotions, and the appearance of evil beasts was becoming more and more active. Moreover, the lords in the country did not have enough troops to fight them, so small villages had no chance. In fact, when Shu returned, all the people in the village had already been devoured, and his happy life had been shattered in an instant.
Shu was stunned. But as soon as he realized what had happened, his body naturally moved against the evil beasts that were destroying the village in front of him to avenge everyone's deaths. However, Shu, who was only a hunter, was almost killed by the evil beast in return. However, as he struggled to kill even one of the beasts, the former Katarner Saint appeared.
In an instant, Shu's predecessor defeated the evil beast and saved Shu, the only survivor of the beast's attack.
Then he noticed the hatred in Shu's eyes. Hatred for the evil beast that had taken everything from him and hatred for the country that had done nothing.
Sympathizing with Shu's young but burning hatred, the predecessor decided to take Shu in.
He gave him his own skills and the strength to take revenge. However, the predecessor hoped that by raising Shu, his desire for revenge would one day fade. He did not want young Shu to live his life trapped in revenge, and he raised him with that hope in mind. And so Shu inherited all the skills of his predecessor and the title of Katarner Saint.
From there, Shu began actively working as a Katarner Saint to destroy evil.
However, he did not hunt evil just for revenge.
He continued to fight the evil so that no one would be born in the same situation as he was. Thus, it seemed that Shu's desire for revenge had faded away, just as his predecessor had wished.
However, one day, his desire for revenge was rekindled. It was when he defeated an evil beast that attacked a certain village.
The village was simple and poor, reminiscent of Shu's former village. Still, the villagers lived happily every day. Then, a swarm of evil beasts attacked. The country where the village was located is also at war. Fortunately, one of the villagers noticed the evil beasts and immediately went to the Lord to ask for help.
But what came back was a heartless answer.
Evil beast, how can I use my precious powers for such an incomprehensible thing?
What will happen to our village?
Do something. I tell you, no matter what happens to your fields because of this, you'll still have to pay your taxes as usual. A death sentence, indeed. It was impossible for the villagers, who had no real combat experience, to fight against the evil beast. The only way to survive was to flee. But the nearby villagers were also struggling to survive, and there was no place to take them in. In the midst of the villagers' despair at their inability to do anything about the situation, Shu appeared. After all, the world will never change, will it? With sad, Resigned eyes, Shu killed all the evil beasts that came his way and saved the village. The world would never change. Shu felt it keenly, but instead he was able to save the village. Satisfied, he tried to leave the village. However, the villagers stopped him. Savious armor.
Thanks to you, our village has been saved.
Truly thank you very much. All the villagers bowed their heads in unison and thanked Shu as if they were worshipping a god. Exclamation.
It was at that moment.
Suddenly, Shu's body was filled with an unprecedented power. The more the villagers prayed, the stronger the power became.
Oh, how divine.
Seeing Shu like this, the villagers worshipped him as the true Messiah. What is this power?
That was the moment when Shu received his divine power.
The divine power was the power Shu had been seeking. It was the power to change the world. This is if only I had that power, I could change the world.
The heart of vengeance that he had given up and covered up was rekindled.
To end the ugly wars of humanity and the evil that took everything from them. To make everything right, I will become a god.
That's what he swore.
From then on, Shu's actions were swift.
He received the divine power and immediately went to the Lord. What are you? A god.
Shu simply told him that and cut off the head of the frightened lord.
Then he went to the lords and nobles who were oppressing the rest of the people and wielded the blade of absolution again.
Esto.
Gyre.
Save me. You people have made too many mistakes. Shu, not listening to their pleas for life, simply cut off their heads without hesitation. The nobles, horrified by the situation, immediately tried to defeat Shu, but they were all turned back and purged one by one. Thus, a storm of blood raged throughout the country.
We did it.
They're dead. Thanks to Shu's armor. But despite the misery, the people rejoiced and worshipped Shu. After all, my actions were right.
As he realized his growing divine power, Shu found righteousness in his actions.
I see if God rules and manages everything, the world will be happy.
And as he came to this thought, he brought the holy into his ranks one by one and set out to create his ideal world. Recalling his past memories and regaining his composure, Shu turned back to Usagi and Otis.
If you say that my actions are delusional, then your actions are immature and half-baked, not even capable of being delusional.
If you are not willing to change the current situation, then you are just a fool who is carried away by your role. Don't talk about ideals in front of me. Huh. Well, that's okay. I didn't expect you to be so stubborn. I also didn't know that you could use the power of a half-god like divine authority, even if it's just an imitation.
Otherwise, I could have shared my ideals with you. What is sharing ideals? It's just brainwashing. What choice do we have? For those who are too stupid to understand our ideals, we have no choice but. The moment he was about to say, Shu blinked at the distant sky. Whip's presence has disappeared. It was because he noticed that the presence of Whips, who had moved to capture Iris, had vanished. Nonsense, Iris must have been wounded by now, and yet Whips, one of the gods, was defeated. When he saw that Shu muttered this with a grim expression, Usagi smiled secretly when he guessed what was going on.
Iris, she was able to meet you here safely. Usagi was convinced that Iris had been able to reach you here.
But when he kept silent without anyone noticing, Shu put him under pressure.
Usagi, you know something, don't you?
Exclamation.
Who knows? Shu stared at Usagi.
But soon, the pressure disappeared, and the rainbow cage with Usagi and Otis in it was lifted into the air. We have lost Leo and then Whips. We can't afford any more losses.
Then he turned on his heel and... I'll go.
And with that, he disappeared from the scene together with Usagi and Otis. At that time, Shu began to make his move. Kaori, who had been proposed to by Joshua, went to the chairman's office to discuss the matter with her father, Tsukarsur. Such a thing. When Tsukarsur heard the details from Kaori, he was troubled.
What should I do now?
And Kaori, the one who had been proposed to, also had a confused look on her face. Let me ask you one thing. Are you seriously not interested in marrying Joshua's Ama?
No. At Tsukarsur's words, Kaori panicked.
I see, even I think that Kaori is not ready to get married yet.
Then.
But the other person is a prince and also the first in line to the throne, Joshua's Ama.
If we are careless, it could lead to an international problem.
No way.
Of course, I will refuse the offer, but I wonder what will really happen. No matter how much they thought about it, they could not come up with an answer. Thank you for watching Ages with Sidra. I hope you enjoyed this chapter of I Got a Cheat Ability in a Different World. And
became extraordinary even in the real world. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more volumes and novels. Let's keep exploring these amazing stories together. See you in the next one.